Thank you, the AFIA team and the GIFT team for giving me this opportunity. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anand, and thank you for this opportunity. I think it's a wonderful platform today, and I was very inspired by seeing the enthusiasm and the drive that the children had today to show the expanse of possibilities. And thank you, Anand, for giving me this topic of innovations in rural and urban schools of India. I've added another subtitle to it called Possibility to Actuality, and I think what I want to run us through is how do we create a possibilitarian in this world today post COVID, which is a very important responsibility that we as seniors are going to also hold, to know of what we can do with what's our responsibility is not just to do with what is at hand immediately, but also to look into the future a little more dimly, even if possible at a distance. So with that, I created and coined this term called possibilitarian, which is what these young children, kids, and youth are going to be about today. And how is it that we are going to be able to create this group of possibilitarians, which will only be through education? And I think that's the whole theme that I'm going to drive in the next couple of minutes, on how do we drive possibilitarian to create this, and that can only be done through driving education. And I'm going to keep this discussion a little more pragmatic, because I've been through these days interacting with a lot of young students, kids, trying to understand what's their perspective about education, what's the global perspective on education, what's the disruption on education, and what's the real innovation on education. And I think that's where the real key for the message lies for this discussion. I think I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a surgical oncologist. I'm one of the directors at surgical oncology at HCG, which is a cancer center. We're a publicly listed company with 26 centers across the world. And that's our expanse in India. Now, the question that I lay before the children, the youth is, why do I need to make any impactful change? And I think that's what every child is here talking about, trying to look at understanding in schools, colleges, with regarding to education. And so when I'm talking about looking at innovation in rural or in terms of urban education, I'm also talking about Arjun. Just a second, hold on, sir. So I'm talking about basically, why do I need to do an impactful change? And that brings us to the question of understanding through the entire approach of understanding from the youth, how are we going to make this impactful change? What is it that we're going to drive through this impactful change? So I'm just going to play this quick video, and I want each one of you to look at it. I've downloaded this video from the internet, which was actually discussed with me with a few youngsters, talking about understanding what's the future of education like and what does it hold for us. So I'm going to just play this video, and I want all of you to just look at it.
Is it supposed to be like music or audio in this video, or is it a silent video?
This will help you get a good degree. We never had this opportunity when.
Because I don't think you were able to press the share sound button.
Right now,
Okay.
there
Is
is
it
a kid
better?
finishing parents' evening in
Okay.
a heated discussion with mother, saying, why does he have to study subjects he would never ever use in his life? And she will look at him blank-eyed, stifle a sigh, think for a second, and then lie. She'll say something along the lines of, you know, to get a good job, you need a good degree. And these subjects will help you get a good degree. We never had this opportunity when I was younger. And he will reply, but you were young a long time ago, weren't you, Mum? And she won't respond, although what he implies makes perfect sense, that society's needs would have changed since she was 16. But she will ignore him, grip his hand more sternly, then drag him to the car. But what she doesn't know is that she didn't ignore him just to shut him up. She didn't lie because they were just returning from parents' evening and an argument in the hallway would look bad on her resume. She won't lie because she just spent the last 1 hour convincing a stern-faced teacher that she will ensure that her child studies more at home. No, she would lie simply because she does not know any better herself. Although her whole adult life she has never used or applied Pythagoras' theorem, pathetic fallacy, and still does not know the value of x, she will rely on society to tell her that her child, who has one of the sharpest minds in the school, is hyperactive, unfocused, easily distracted, and wayward. Students, how many equations, subjects, and dates did you memorize just before an exam never to use again? How many A grades did you get which were never asked for when you applied for a job? How many times have you remembered something 5 minutes just after the teacher said stop writing, only to receive your results 1 month later to realize that you were only 1 mark short of the top grade? Does that mean remembering 5 minutes earlier would have made you more qualified for a particular job? Well, on the application form it would have. We all have different abilities, thought processes, experiences, and genes. So why is a class full of individuals tested by the same means? So does that mean Sherelle thinks she's dumb because she couldn't do a couple of sums? And if this issue is not addressed properly, it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then every school has the audacity to have a policy on equality. The irony. Exams are society's methods of telling you what you're worth. But you can't let society tell you what you are, because it's the same society that tells you that abortion is wrong but then looks down on teenage parents. The same society that sells products to promote natural hair, looks, and smooth complexion, with the model on the box half photoshopped and has fake lashes and hair extensions, with pastors that preach charity but own private jets, imams that preach against greed but are all fat, parents that say they want educated kids but constantly marvel at how rich Richard Branson is, governments that preach peace but endorse wars, that say they believe so much in the importance of higher education and further learning, then why increase tuition fees every single year? I believe Miss Jefferson when she took me into the office and said that my exams would be imperative to my success, because we was taught to always follow when Miss Jefferson led. But then I took Jefferson out of the equation and learned to think for myself. I realized we was taught to always follow when Miss led. The irony. Test us with tests, but the finals are never final, because they never prepare us for the biggest test, which is survival. And what I suggest is fairly outlandish, so I do not expect everyone to understand this, except for the kids who knows what it feels like to be worth no more than that D or that A that you get on results day, and the ones whose best stories were never good enough for the English teacher, because apparently you missed out key literal techniques, did not follow the class plan, and the language was too informal for him to understand. But then he'd reference Hamlet and Macbeth, and you'd fight the urge to express your contempt by partially clenching your fist with only your medius finger left protruding in the middle of your hand, and then asked if he was aware that Shakespeare was known as the innovator of slang. Or the kid at the back of the class who thinks, why am I studying something that doesn't fuel my drive? But then when confronted with a maths problem, his eyes come alive. So this one is for my generation, the ones who found what they were looking for on Google, the ones who followed their dreams on Twitter, pictured their future on Instagram, accepted destiny on Facebook. This one's for my failures and my dropouts, for my unemployed graduates, my shop assistants, cleaners, and cashiers with bigger dreams, my self-employed entrepreneurs, my world changers, and my dream chasers. Because the purpose of why I hate school but love education was not to initiate a worldwide debate, but to let them know that whether 72 or 88, 44 or 68, we will not let exam results decide our fate. Peace.
So that was just a video to kind of showcase a completely new approach of thinking to education, what the next generation is really asking us. And I think it's a very fundamental question and a very respected question. And I think this perception needs to be addressed. The questions that the youngsters and the youth are asking us needs to be addressed at this juncture. And I'm going to bring you back to COVID for a second. And I'm just saying there were millions of deaths that happened. And what's interesting is a small virus which weighed 0.85 attograms, a few grams of this virus stopped the world. Today, it has made us rethink on the entire thought process of trying to figure out what is it that we are really looking out in this entire thing. And even today, the question that remains to me is what Winston Churchill told in World War II, that COVID seems to be a riddle wrapped in a mystery within an enigma, but perhaps there is a key. Now, there was a lot of lessons learned from COVID for me, for the children and for education, which actually changed the way, because education got disrupted during that entire period of 2 years. uh, Things got worse. Many places, people were forced to rethink, reshift. But I think it's important for us to understand what did the World War C leave us for innovation, for education in rural and the urban settings. So when I look at the life post-COVID, I've divided it into two parts: the BC, which is the before COVID, and AD, which is the after disease. And I believe it's time that we've opened up our entire ecosystem in innovation for schools for reverse mentoring, wherein till now we've been talking about how do we change the ecosystem in schools and innovate and teach the children to innovate. Whereas now I'm going to schools and I'm actually going back to ask them to tell me and teach me on what do they think needs to be changed and what is it that they already think that they could innovate. And I think this perception of reverse mentorship that I've been doing with a couple of schools of late have completely changed my perspectives into the area of innovation, to understand that it is the future of innovation is going to be driven by the youngsters, it's going to be driven by the kids, and that's going to be the most powerful change that we're going to see in the future. There was a very beautiful report from the Boston Consulting Group called Transforming Beyond the Crisis with Heads, Hands, and Hearts. Very thought-provoking, and this was during the pandemic that they talked about a people-centric transformation agenda that will be a key differentiator. And this, I believe, will be opening up the discussion for what we call as conscious capitalism, wealth creation with value creation, and ambition with purpose. And I think that is what the fundamental tenets of what we're going to be talking about innovation in rural and urban schools is going to be about. And we are talking to educational reformers, talking to governments, talking to institutions, owners of schools, the boards, to say that the post-COVID era has to be open for the youngsters for conscious capitalism, where we create wealth with value, we create ambition with purpose. And that's the fundamental tenet that we want to drive home. And during this journey, I came across the founders of this particular project called Project DeFi. They have created these centers called Nook, wherein they're trying to revolutionize the entire learning process through the aspect of the video that I earlier showed you, where people are being trained and learn to help build their passion and vocation based on their interest and based on their talents, and also based on imparting them skills. And that's the kind of alternate education systems that are developing. So for all those who are interested, you can please log into Project DeFi and actually go through it. This is a Bangalore-based innovative company that is running an alternate education program. And that brings me to the important aspects of today. How do we take the lessons of life to the classroom? Because what we learn in our classrooms is that the lessons are taught first and then comes the exam. Whereas in life, you get the exams first and then you get the lessons to be learned from it. And that's why the lessons of life are so important and unforgettable. I'm talking about India, and when I was looking at the Indian landscape of looking at the gross domestic expenditure on R&D, I found that USA, China were much higher, and India was at the purple arrow. At the turquoise arrow. Now, when we look at this arrow, one of the things that we said was that this bubble is small. It still needs to move forward and it needs to get bigger. Now, that will only happen with innovations at the rural and the urban schools. And it is the future of these children that we will need to curate. And I'm going to have a clarion call for the audience here, for the educationalists, the experts, the innovators, the policymakers, to come forward and give us suggestions on what do we do to move this bubble forward, to make this bubble bigger. And I think that's what every country would need to think about if we need to change our innovation landscape in terms of schooling, and teach the children when do they do research, when do somebody does invention, when do we do an innovation, and when do you do the classic, what you call as a jugaad. I don't know if many of you are familiar, but jugaad is an Indian word that was coined to try and work on a quick fix solution. That means when you're faced with a very complex problem, try to find a quick, simple solution like the Occam's razor. And that's the Indian equivalent to Occam's razor is jugaad. So we are trying to drive at school level the concept of create in India, not just make in India, not just import from another country and assemble it here. Try to create the entire ecosystem here, because that's how you're going to increase jobs. That's how you're going to increase revenues. And with that, and with Anand, we've been a part of an ecosystem with IFIA on the Indian Startup Festival, where thousands of innovators come together. And with Anand's leadership, we've created the International Federation of Inventors Association, Bharat. And as a prelude to the GIFT program, I had been to many schools talking about the GIFT program, encouraging students to participate and telling them about how we can teach them design thinking. And that's a very crucial aspect of innovation. With the efforts from Anand, we've been able to now have the Prime Minister's office partner with IFIA Bharat, the International Federation of Inventors Association, Bharat, to join hands and actually work for innovations for children in the rural and the urban ecosystem, where we say that from an USB to a rocket missile, these kids could think of anything, and it's an unending thrust that we want to give for innovations to these children. So the global field trip was one such area we thought was the first time that we wanted to, through the IFIA Bharat this time, encourage and accelerate innovation system and support children. And we're thankful to the GIFT team for the time they've spent, for the innovations that they've made them think, for the design thinking process they have taught us. And that has actually helped a lot. And I was happy that I was making my own son participate, and I saw his enthusiasm and giving him the freedom to think and assisting him where he felt he needed it. But I think that brings me to the fundamental point that if we need to change the first aspect, what we are trying to work at the rural and the urban setting is, we are trying to look at asking children to change their perspectives. And I often tell them, when Newton saw the laws of, when he saw the apple, he saw the laws of gravity. When Steve Jobs saw the apple, he gave me a Mac computer. Now, each one looks at this idea in a different way. And that's the fundamental tenet of learning that we need to teach them, in terms of lateral thinking, diverse thinking, in terms of, sometimes in terms of ignorant thinking. Because I think that's what is required, because knowledge has somewhere curtailed and limited our thinking in many areas to stop innovation. I remember when I was talking at one of these medical school, at the first year medical school, a student stood up and asked me, dear sir, can you tell me what is the way in which I can get a brilliant idea? I was very impressed by his question, and I told him, look, hold on to one question in your life and you'll be flooded with answers through your life. And I think that's the most important thing, that when you have an in question, deep down and you research into it, study into it, you will be able to add a soul into the question, and that can be taken eventually to masses, and the masses can become markets. And that's the important message that I've learned through this entire innovation trip, that sometimes people, especially companies, force you to look at markets, look at where the market is and then innovate. That's the wrong approach. I think children need to be taught about taking up individual problems, building hypotheses, and then after that scaling it up to masses and markets, not to be taught the market approach of innovations. And I think that brings us to the other question that we are all going to be asked in GIFT and beyond GIFT, on where is the scope of work, where can I be successful? And I think that's something that we need to really address through our training programs, teaching, talks, that I feel that this is a wrong approach to life. Success is a wrong word that actually misleads you in many places. And it's this journey that we need to define, that is from ambition to purpose. How does one define his purpose and then define the path to fail successfully? And I think that's where the Da Vinci Code and the secret code of innovation lies for children in schools. And importantly, I feel the end goal of education is knowledge, and end goal of that knowledge should be some form of service. If we are able to serve our fellow men, if we are able to serve our countrymen, if we are able to serve our global citizens, and I think that's the fundamental utilization of education and knowledge, which is nothing but service. And if it does not serve the world, it is not going to be useful. And I worry that today we have been able to expand the education landscape, but if we are able to create more educated people, and if we are not able to drive them with a purpose, we will be creating people who are going to create solutions which have no problems, and then create problems to solve the solutions. And I think it's very, very important for us to think about this. I keep remembering this as I was visiting John Hopkins in one of the leadership programs. I came across this very interesting story of Alfred Blaylock and Vivian Thomas, who were the pioneers of the Partners of the Heart. It's a long story given in a very beautiful book called Partners of the Heart. What I wanted you all to know, my friends, is Blaylock was the chief of cardiothoracic surgery. And guess what? Guess who was Vivian Thomas? Vivian Thomas was a janitor. And they both together created and innovated the blue baby surgery, which is one of the first surgeries contributed from Hopkins. It's a long story, but what I wanted to tell you was that a janitor, Vivian Thomas, a janitor, came forward and actually disrupted the ecosystem and taught Dr. Alfred Blaylock the cardiac surgery. My friends, today we have been given so many opportunities, education, information, chat GPT, Google, Facebook, Instagram, knowledge exchange, information exchange. What is the impediment for us to come together to actually motivate ourselves? And I think that there it lies in how do we overcome our excuses? I think the fundamental question every person needs to ask ourselves is, when I wake up in the morning, what is it that I have to do to overcome my excuse? And that's what Vivian Thomas did. He did not have education. He did not have fundamental finances to survive, but he had one reason to overcome his excuse. And that's what he did to make the blue baby surgery happen. So never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And that's what Margaret Mead reiterated. And I think that's also relevant for the children. Find your ikigai. Find your ikigai, which is at the center of what you love and what the world needs is your mission. What the world needs and what you get paid for is your vocation. What you get paid for and what you're good at is your profession. And what you're good at and what you love is your passion. In the center of it is you, which is your ikigai, and you need to identify that yourself. So I remember this very beautiful trip in which Swami Vivekananda and Jamshedji Tata, two tall figures, one in the spiritual world and the other in the business world from India, met. And when they met, Swami Vivekananda ji told Jamshedji Tata, what if the science of the West meets with the philosophy of the East? We will be able to create an ecosystem. And today, because of that, Indian Institute of Science was born, which is one of the world's topmost institute in research, as a part of this great conversation. And I keep telling my friends that dare to dream and be wise to wake up and act. And that's the key to the mantra of learning that success is a menace and it fools smart people into thinking they can't lose. So don't get obsessed with success. If you want to double your success rate, triple your failure rate. That's where the trick is. Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, the former Chief Justice of India, told me something very beautiful. He said a very profound thing, that if 3 doctors every day take a car and go to the walk to the hospital from their home, the GDP is low. And if the same 3 doctors buy a car and go to the hospital, the GDP is going to be much better. And if the same 3 doctors on the way meet an accident and die, the GDP is the best. So GDP is a very wrong method of only accessing progress. Let's devise new methods of innovating and looking at how do we look at innovation and progress in schools and education and curriculum. And that's where we're going to make a difference. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Again, Anand and the GIFT team, thank you very much. Any questions or queries, I'll be happy to take.
Right, I think we actually have time for like one question because it's for me it's 2:59. So we have time for one question. Anand, do you have a question?
No. I think me and Dr. Vishal, we have had so many interactions. I think I leave it to Alvil and Perrin. You guys should ask him the questions because he would be very happy to take questions from you people to understand what your perspective is and how you look up. Because I believe both of you are Filipinos and based in Saudi Arabia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So please go ahead, shoot the questions.
Yes, correct. Hello, Dr. Vishal. And I am
Hi.
a Filipino homeschooler, same with Varen. So we are very much interested in what you are saying. However, I do realize that we have no more time for this particular presentation, but we do want to connect with you further. And if there are people who also want to ask you more about these things, please share again your contact information.
Thank you. I will send you my mail address and I'll send you my details. I'll be happy to connect. Thank you very much. Namaste.